Dreamcatchers, welcome back to the Writer's Haven. I'm your host, Helena, and today we're having a discussion with fictional memoir writer Jamia Nicole. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this hybrid genre, it is basically an autobiographical work of fiction. The author chooses to tell a real experience or the full story of their life as a fictional account. It is usually written like a memoir, featuring first-person narration from the protagonist that is meant to be the author. Exciting stuff, right? Well, Jamia pens a very interesting tale that features all of the juicy elements of fiction writing: love found and lost, and the growing pains of womanhood and self-discovery. I found her work to be honest, refreshing, and inspiring, and I'm happy to have her on the show. Join me in welcoming writer Jamia Nicole. Jamia, welcome to the Writer's Haven.
Thank you. It's a blessing to be here.
Well, you know, because we have never had an author that was as young as you come into the studio, as well as a fictional memoir writer, I would be remiss if I did not definitely explore the possibility of having you here, and thank you so much for agreeing to be here.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start off by just talking about the genesis of your work and how you came to write the book Woke.
Woke. Ooh. Just the title in itself. People, when we hear of woke, we think of the movement that we're going through as Black people, and waking up out of this self-consciousness into something so much bigger than ourselves. For me, it was definitely a moment of like self-exploration, awakening from the old me into someone who I am trying to step into. And I feel like a lot of us go through that. We change over time, and throughout life, self-discovery just takes us to new levels. So Woke was really about this character finding herself, and throughout the journey, hopefully someone else can pull from that and find themselves also. How, or why rather, did you select a fictional memoir genre as your way of expressing the message that you wanted to have come through in your book? Well, memoirs, I personally love reading them myself, because I'm just like, anyone who's going to write about a moment in their life, it must be a moment that's like very much meaningful. It must have so much meat in it that you just want to be able to unpack. I myself, the moment that I decided to portray, it was definitely something that I wanted to unpack. At the same time, I definitely wanted to keep the identity of every person involved in the story a secret, nonetheless, as well as myself. This is coming across through the eyes of a fictional character, well, from the portrayal of a fictional character, so that, we see ourselves in her, however she's portrayed. Okay, and because there are so many ways that you could have written this book, and as we discussed off the air, I told you that the way that it read, it was conversational, but at the same time, it very much read like a novel. I mean, your ability to capture the story through the first person is phenomenal. And for this to be your first book and to be able to nail that voice really resonated for me off the top. And so when you decided that it was going to be a fictional memoir versus just a novel, where you could have in the same breath that you just said that you wanted to protect the people that were in the book by making them fictional characters, you could have done that through just writing it as a regular work of fiction. So was there any particular reason why you decided to write it as a memoir versus just a story of fiction? Even though it's kind of both. Yeah, it is a bit of both. And it's so much of me in it. the process, and I'm sure that's something we might dive into even more a little bit later, the process was such a healing process for me, just within writing the story. So when I did start writing it, it was very much like journal entries here and there and scraps of paper like all over my apartment. So taking myself out of it and just portraying it completely as like a work of like a novel, that would have been like pulling me out of the work. So it was, I was very much attached to it because it was helping me get through the actual, once you read the book, well, I know you have, but once our audience reads it, they'll see I was very much attached to, you know, the issue at hand, what I was talking about. And so pulling myself out of it and saying like, oh, this is a novel, it would have just been, I don't even think I would have been able to produce the work as I did, to be completely honest, because it would almost be like, wow, like I'm just writing and there's like no heart felt behind it.
Wow, that's very unique, and also your self-awareness about why it needed to be written in the genre that you wrote it in. It was very purposeful, the way that you thought through that, and so that I applaud you for that as well. Okay, and so we're going down this journey with Tori. Now, did you also see it kind of a work of self-help for others who would be reading it, encouraging them, those who have had the similar journey that Tori went through?
Yeah, I definitely played around with the genre of self-help because I was like, well, where can I pen this? Should it be like in a section of the bookstore that just focuses on like biblical references, or should it be a self-help genre? And I was like, I don't know. I'm reading a lot of self-help for myself, you know, to push me through, but it was an exploration. So one, it was me, you know, telling my story in hopes that I would be able to help someone else, which does identify with I guess certain self-help books, or those are the tactics within them. But at the same time, I used a lot of different biblical references. I wanted people to, you know, be on this journey of their own, whatever it might look like, and take some of the biblical references that I do use to work your way through whatever it is you're going through. So yes, to make a long story short, I think self-help could probably fit its way somewhere within this text.
Now, I know that you have a bachelor's degree in English.
Yes.
And so was that the beginning of honing your skills as a writer? You're going through that program. What was the college again?
University of Washington.
Mary Washington, right.
Yes.
Do you feel that institution and your majoring in English played a lot into your writing abilities and plunging into this book?
Definitely. Definitely the storytelling aspect is really interesting, though, because I feel like we all of us have our own stories, but just being at the University of Mary Washington, when I was in the English department, I majored in English, but primarily in journalism. So journalism writing was something that I really attached to. And writing about like fashion blogs or anything on campus was the style of writing that I was doing. So it was a bit different from the work that I did put out. But it definitely honed, like all of those skills honed into this piece of work, because in journalism writing, like you have to be able to catch the audience at the very beginning. Otherwise, they're not going to want to continue reading on. They're just like, well, I can pass this, you know. You have to be able to catch the reader from the jump. So.
Right, and as I mentioned to you earlier, you definitely have that gift of capturing the reader early on and causing them to want more, to read more about her plight. and what goes on in that relationship and how she pulls through that. And then all of the relationships that surround her and how she maneuvers through those relationships. So you definitely have that gift of storytelling and capturing the audience and keeping them attentive. Again, this is her first book. Have to look at the Dreamcatchers and remind them of that. Okay, so were there any resources that you went to, or a mentor that you went to, that helped you in writing the book?
Not so much with writing the book. I definitely had a lot of help from my family, from friends who I felt very close with, who helped in the editing process of the book, and then just being there for me to hear some of these stories. Because when you're writing personal accounts, and I was writing again through the lens of Zora, who was the main character, a lot of times I had to put the work aside. I was like, this is getting to be way too much. Like I have to, you know, and I know a couple of times my mom was like, Jamia, just let it, like, not let it go altogether, but for right now, for your sanity, like, you know, put it aside. Like Zora will be okay. So definitely had help from all hands were on deck with this. Like it was self-published. Friends, family helped to edit the book. Also, they were just there hearing me tell the stories, because there were a couple of stories I can tell you where I was just like, no one wants to hear this. No one can relate. Like,
there are different times in your writing of the book?
Yeah, a lot of self-doubt, you know, to be completely honest, and just no one's gonna, you know, whether no one's gonna relate or no one's gonna want to hear this or they won't care. It was a lot of that. So just having the support of people who love you, like, means the world to me. So.
And you have to know that authors, that is something we struggle with all the time. So, I mean, no matter where you are in your journey and in your career as a writer, those voices will always be there as part of the journey. And so it's really, really important to know that A, it happens to everybody.
Okay.
and B, to just continue on. And you're right, it's good to have that support and to have other people reading it and giving you their feedback. And how much of their feedback did you actually take in and made adjustments to your writing?
Some of it I was a little stubborn.
Okay.
Like, for the biggest thing was the identity. Like, I knew certain people I would change their identity, but for a couple of characters I was very stubborn, and I'm like, no, I can't. Like, that's so raw. Like, I don't want to take that out, or I don't want to change anything. But having to, like, humble myself and know that, like, the intentions behind the people who are telling me these things, these pieces of advice, they come from a place of love. So just humbling myself to take some of the feedback, I had to do it. So
take what you can and what is authentic to the story and the characters and the rest.
Yeah, and not changing, not allowing. You can always get, like, a lot of feedback from others, but not allowing, like, what it is you truly want to be disrupted in any way, if that's the best way to say it. Not allowing that to be shifted, and still owning what you have, but then it takes time. Like, I'm still in a process towards it. But yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the fictional aspects of the book. And I apologize, did I call her Tori? Zora.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you birth these characters?
Zora is an alter ego of myself.
Okay.
I will say.
So she was easy.
She was very easy to come with. We all, like, strive to be I shouldn't say to be someone else, but I know, speaking for myself, sometimes I'm like, oh, if I was a little bit more loud, or a little bit more this or that at times, maybe other things would what sprang into my path. But we are who we are for a reason. So Zora was definitely an alter ego of myself. Some of the other characters, Devin was very easy to come by.
Okay.
He was the main character's ex-boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So his character definitely pushed the limits as far as, you know, what a good man looks like maybe at the beginning of a relationship versus once you've been with them for a while. So
and that in itself is a message.
It is a message.
And tell me what that message is.
Take time to know who you're going to be with or who you want to be with. Take time to know yourself. And then once you know yourself, you understand yourself and you trust yourself more to be able to know what it is or who it is you want.
Right.
So Devin, definitely sweet character. Some people who have read the book, they're so in love with Devin, and then towards the end, they're like, Jamia, Devin did what? So yeah, Devin was easy also to come by, and I think it's very much relatable to a lot of people who've ever been into any type of relationship. You know, we want to put on this. Not facade, but we want to put on our best face, or I guess you can call it a mask at the beginning of a relationship.
It's like you will meet the representative and then the real person shows up.
Yeah, the real person's always going to show up.
Yeah.
No matter how long time has passed.
Right. And you're right, that's something that we learn. And speaking from a woman's perspective, since the story is being told from a woman's perspective, and you know, so we see her growth throughout the situation, and the self-discovery and the journal entries really help in bringing that full circle.
Thank you.
So the way that you even formatted the book technically, and also just in the way that you melded the two. Was, I think, masterfully done.
Thank you.
Masterfully done. Again, dream catchers for someone who just wrote their first book. So let's talk about your process. You know, how, so there was the theme that was set for you, given the experiences that you went through and also those that you may have come in contact with, observed. And so you have this situation. How did you actually start the process of writing it?
The process started, I've always wanted to write a book, but this creative project started on the day of that, you know, the event happened.
Yeah.
So it was like my first thought. You know, a lot of times when people go through something that's a bit traumatic, sometimes we just well up inside and fall apart, or sometimes some people have like a purpose in mind or something that they're striving towards just to try to forget about what has happened. And I think that's almost kind of what came about for me. I just wanted to latch on to something that I could put all of my focus into. And that's almost
to kind of help. It was therapeutic in that way.
It was, yeah, it was so therapeutic, and it's very much like that for me with any creative project that I do. Anyone can tell you, like if I'm creating a dance piece, I'll play the music on loop over and over and annoy everyone around me. For this, it was fully like putting my full self into the project. Some days writing like just within my own home versus going to a coffee shop to write, because I had to seclude myself from everything. So yeah, especially some of the darker stories within the book, I had to like live through that again. Some of the stories were hard to retell, but I had to like almost like go through it again just to fully be able to portray how Zora felt during those times.
And was some of the motivation for allowing yourself to go through that process again, or those feelings again, those emotions again, was part of the motivation because you wanted to help others who would be reading this book after the fact
Definitely.
and dealing with these kinds of situations.
Definitely. I wanted to be able to help. I also wanted to be able to read the story back myself and see like, wow, like I went from here to here. Like, and we all do. Like with each day, you know, we live through, like we're not the same person as we were the day before. So I wanted to be able to look back and be like, wow, like I've grown. I wanted others to be able to take something that they're trying to grow from or grow towards and be able to say, yeah, like I'm on this journey also. I'm growing from something. So.
Okay. And when did your passion for writing actually occur? Was it while you were taking the English classes, or was it even before then?
I think it was before then. Yeah, I've always loved to write. My sister actually, she wrote her first playwright when she was in, I want to say it was like freshman year in high school. And so like even before then, like we would always be like writing plays together or writing little stories or poems. And I know for me, that was just seeing how dedicated she was on that project. I mean, at the time I was like, Brittany, like you're writing a play, you're 14 years old.
That's awesome.
So that was definitely motivation for me. When it came back into my mind, I was like, wow, she wrote something so young. She was so passionate about it. And I wanted to do the same. So yeah.
Okay, okay. So the message, well, actually, let me ask this question first. Who is your target audience?
Young people. Those who have been purchasing the book so far have been between the ages of 18 to 35, so a pretty wide age range, but all within a younger audience. I definitely feel, and we were talking a little bit about this earlier, I definitely feel like a lot of people could relate to this story, though.
Men and women.
Men and women.
And older people.
Older
outside
than
of
30,
that.
yes, definitely. Anyone who's been in love, anyone who desires to be in love of any form, to be completely honest, I think can definitely pull something from this piece of work. So.
Okay, and then the main message then of that target audience that you want to get across, and I had actually some notes about, you know, actually from your book that I wanted to highlight, but you're here and you're the author, and I'll let you do that. But what is the main message that you want that group of people to understand and know after reading this book?
After reading this book, I definitely want people to reclaim themselves, know their true self, and never let anything, because I feel like there's so many things that come into play during all of our lives, like whether it's a relationship issue, job, whatever. Life can be hard and it can try to tear you down, but just knowing who you are and like who God has made you to be, knowing that you have a purpose and not letting anything or anyone disturb the peace, really finding yourself throughout the story.
Okay, okay. And what would you say were some of the challenges that you faced in writing it?
When myself.
Okay.
Yeah, thinking that I had to do this within like a certain time frame. Time was a big element because.
And was it your time frame or was it a?
It was my time
fictitious
frame. Yeah,
time frame.
It was my time frame. Thinking that after a certain while, I just want to be relevant anymore, or no one would care.
Okay. You mean as far as publishing it or writing it?
Publishing.
Publishing it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the challenge was after it had been written, and now you're ready to publish, and you wanted it published by a certain time, and there were some challenges associated with that, is what you're saying?
Because I put dates within the text, so it was written as a journal entry.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, if I'm writing it in 2016 and then some of the dates go through 2017, but I don't publish it until 2019 or 20, is it going to be relevant? Is anyone going to care?
Okay.
So it was.
And now, what's the answer to that question?
I don't think it matters.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm almost like, whew, I can like breathe now a little bit easier. Yeah. Not to say I don't think people are looking at the dates. It's just, it's calming that it's out now.
So that one of the challenges you're saying then was in actually getting it published within a certain time frame. Were there any other challenges in publishing it or marketing it?
Well, I knew I was going to self-publish, and I've never been the best at marketing myself. I always have some type of team helping me with things like this. So knowing that I was going to have to put in the legwork, I was telling you I live in New York, so even if it meant going out like on the subway trains, and I've seen it done before, like selling my book on the street, I knew by self-publishing I would have to put in a lot of legwork. It would be money involved, time, which is huge.
So Jamia, what's next? What projects do you have coming down the pike?
So I'm really working on just pushing out woke, continuing to market it, but I have started like dibbling a little bit into another piece of work that I would love to put out in the next couple of years, featuring my grandmother. So she's always telling stories about one thing or the next. And I would really like to just like take account of all of the memories that she had as a child, everything.
Okay, and just making that into a work of fiction.
Yes,
a novel.
But I'm a dancer, so
Okay,
I am
yeah.
working on an art show, actually. Last year was our first year putting the show out under our collective called Live Live Arts. So we really push for collaborations between dancers, singers, musicians, just live performances. So
Wow, that is so extraordinary. I mean, you just have all these creative juices inside of you, and it's good that you're allowing them to come out in the way that is most creative for you and fulfilling for you. So thank you so much for your artistry and your creativity and coming on the show. We really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you. I love this. It's awesome.
Yes, and Dreamcatchers, I hope you enjoyed my chat with fictional memoir writer Jamia Nicole, and perhaps it encouraged you to pen your own story. For more information about Jamia, you can connect with her socially on Facebook and Instagram. If you missed any of our phenomenal Season 1 shows or want to catch up on Season 2, check out our YouTube channel, Writers Haven Show with V. Helena, and become a subscriber. Join me next week when I sit down with author and advocate Marita Golden. We will discuss her decades of award-winning literature and celebrate the 35th anniversary of her book, Migrations of the Heart. I'll see you next time in the Haven, and until then, catch fire on purpose. Hey!